Hey Facebook, how are you? I apologize. I am a couple minutes late. We were having technical difficulties here. My camera wanted to not let me be great, but I wanted to welcome you to the Money School with LaShawne Holland and talk to you about something today that has been all over the news, but I think it is a great topic to piggyback off of. First, I want to ask you if you would please share this Facebook Live or do a Facebook watch party or whatever. It's important that, we just not only help ourselves, but help other people too. Hey D, how are you, niece? Hi, Ms. Latson, how are you? I'm doing great today. Technology is trying not to let me be great, but I'm recording from my phone. Please forgive me ahead of time if I cough a little bit. I am resisting, but I wanted to talk to you like all over the news this morning. It has been, everybody's been talking about Robert Smith. Hey Ty, how are you? Robert Smith paying off Morehouse College graduates their student loan. And so their student loan debt up to $40 million. He made a grant to the school. And so many people are like, people have different comments about it. The majority of the people felt like it was a great gesture to him. I think it was an amazing gesture for him to do that. And, when you look at those numbers, those are big boy and big girl numbers. And I was thinking how amazing it must have felt for him to be able to do that, not just for the graduates or their parents, but just for him to be able to do that, to know that you have the ability to change somebody's life. Or even Robin Roberts made a comment this morning that he has the ability. Hey Nakia, how are you? He has the ability to change 2 generations by that gesture that he did with paying off $40 million of the students' debt. This is why your wealth vision is so important. Literally, I had many thoughts about this today, but I hear people say this all the time. Hi, LaShonda, how are you? I hear people say this all the time that they want $1 million. And why this is so important. And it really is, it's important because if you want to hit $1 million, right now we're living in a world where that's not really an option because the wealth gap is becoming so huge. It gets larger and larger every year that goes by. And so prayerfully, they're able to take advantage of this opportunity and eventually pay it forward for other people just like them. But if you don't have financial prosperity on your mind, or to make at least $1 million, you're really screwed, because you need that much to be able to live and survive in your golden years. Just earning $1 million, you have to earn more than $1 million just to survive out here. When you talk about the lifespan of your life and your living and how you want to live in your future, if that isn't a goal of yours, then your numbers are off. And so here comes this billionaire, and I hear people say this all the time. I want to change the world. I'm called to change the world. And we hear that a lot, so much so that it's become like a cliche for people to say, I'm going to change the world. And I'm like, whatever, you're not even working what's in your hand. And so he didn't just wake up and have $40 billion to give away. He worked what was in his hand for him to be able to do it. And if you're not willing to do what it takes to get there, we won't have testimonies that are similar to that. And I believe all of us have the ability to change someone else's life like that. And what Robert Smith did was so inspiring to me. He really moved me to want to step up my game. And when you produce at that level and you're just an all-around good human being, it takes a selfless person to be able to give on that level. You get to create exponential generational good in the world that you can, that's bigger than what you've ever dreamed of. And so I wanted to do something inspiring, or just talk about that a little bit today, because what he did was inspiring. And so I encourage you to give, and just to be a giver, and if I, because it's a part of who I am and who I've raised my kids to be, sometimes you just think it's not a really big deal, but it is a big deal, because we live in a world where people are just generally just selfish. And people say, when I get more money, I'll be able to do this, or I'll be able to do that. Understand that what you do at the level that you on, that creates who you are. You don't wait to get $1 million to be a giver. You start giving at the level that you're on. And so I know if you're greedy now, you're going to be greedy when you get money in your hands. And so money is just a magnifier. People say money changes people. I don't believe that. I believe that money just magnifies what's already there. And so if you're a crook when you make $40,000, no matter whether you make $400,000 or $4 million or $40 million, you're going to be a crook then, because money magnifies what's already in your heart. Robert Kiyosaki says that poor people are greedier than rich people. They take. Let me get what's mine. Give me something for nothing. Hook me up. Can I get something for free? Give me the hookup. Why I have to pay that amount? And so that's really a poverty mentality that thinks like that. And so I have a lot of, I've been blessed to be in the room with wealthy people throughout the years. And one thing that I know, they're huge givers. They're big givers. I mean, I was just in the room a couple weeks ago where a guy flew over from India, and he has, I don't want to say collect, but he has an orphanage where he works. He goes around, because in India, it's so poor over there that they don't want to have females. When the woman gives birth to a female, they literally abandon them. And so they go around to public restrooms and they find babies that have been born in toilets and discarded in dumpsters. I mean, it's horrific, left on the side of the road in ditches. And so he collects them and he helps raise them. And sometimes he's able to reconnect them with the original family that they had. And so he just was coming to share his story, and his goal was to be able to raise $14,000. But because the room was filled up with, some of them were millionaires, because people just felt compelled, and they understand the reciprocity of being a giver. He walked away with multiple six figures, like he was sobbing and weeping on the stage. And so when people have the wrong mindset that wealthy people are greedy, most wealthy people do not broadcast about the things that they give. Like somebody made a comment and tagged Oprah, saying, you should do something like this. And Oprah was like, look, I've put 400 black males through college, paid in full. And so you can't police other people's pockets, but you have to learn to give right now in the space that you are currently. And I'm not just talking about your tithe in church. I'm talking about the level that you're on, giving where you see a need. Even if you're just at Starbucks, being able to pay it forward. If you're in the Starbucks drive-through line, give them extra money and say, hey, this is for the car that's behind me. Or when you're in the grocery store, I remember not that long ago, I heard a lady, she was going up and down the aisles that I was in, and I really didn't want her to think that I was eavesdropping on her, but I literally felt her desperation, and she was just calling people, asking people, can you cash out me $20? My baby is hungry. And she had a baby in her arm, and the baby was crying and screaming, and literally nobody was picking up her calls. And so I just said, I went up to her and I was like, ma'am, I'm not trying to eavesdrop on your calls, but I want to be able to buy your baby, a few cans of milk. And I was able to do that for her. And not that I expected anything, in return. It's just that I believe that I'm blessed to be a blessing. And so, when we had the government furlough, how many people did you help? not just talk about the furlough and was like, you know, how bad the furlough was or how messed up our president or, you know, the government is and how they were playing with people's livelihood. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about seeing what you had in your hand that you can help someone else. I help people I didn't even know. I pay for daycares of babies that I had never met. I had never even met their parents. I just knew it was a need that needed to be met and I could do it. And so I think it's important that, you know, people just don't understand. If you're not a giver, you need to work on that flow because it comes back to you. I was reading earlier in the Life Application Bible where in Luke 6:38 where it says, give and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full, pressed down, shaken together to make room for more. To make room for more, running over and poured into your lap. And the amount that you give will determine the amount that you give back. And so this really is how you create legacy. This really is how you create impact in the world. This is how you have generational influence. And this is how we change the world. That's right. Ty says, be cheerful in your giving, not grudgingly, you know. And so what Robert Smith did was he really caused exponential generational change. And he gave them a leg up just in the game of life. We can all take note from his playbook. And so he inspired me to be able to produce more so I can give more, because when you're producing at those numbers, those are big boy and big girl numbers. You can do so much better as a human being for mankind when you don't have an empty cup. And so are you a giver or are you a taker? I want that to sink in. Are you a giver or are you a taker? Giving really is a wealth strategy. People don't look at it like that, but it is. You know, that was a clue that the Bible tried to give us. I believe success leaves clues, right? That was a clue. He was saying, listen, if you give, more will be available to you. And so being a giver really is a characteristic that distinguishes you apart from other people in the same space. It makes you original. I'm not talking about giving the jokers who just always mismanage their money. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ones that genuinely really do need help, that you can make a mark on their life just by your gift. And so I was reading not long ago that research shows that takers are gossipers. One of a characteristic of a person who has a poverty mindset is that they're a taker, and takers are gossipers. And so if you know someone that is constantly gossiping, make a mental note that they're not a giver, that they're a taker. Being a giver produces extreme pleasure. Being a giver produces extreme pleasure. It triggers, what I was reading was actually an article that was written by a scientist who had done research for several years about this. And he said that he calls it the happiness trifecta, and meaning that it releases dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. And so it creates this exciting happiness, like a euphoria is what it creates for people just by giving. Givers are free emotionally. And so if you give without expectation, you're free. You give because it's the right thing to do. It's the good thing to do. You give because it's the God thing to do. Maya Angelou, I'll never forget, I went to Bennett College and she came to the college to speak at chapel one Wednesday. And I don't remember much of that day. I was just so in awe of the fact that Maya Angelou was at the podium speaking. But one of the things that she said to me that really stuck, she says, I've found that among its other benefits, giving liberates the soul of the giver. Giving liberates the soul of the giver. And so givers improve their empathy for mankind and gain a deeper connection with real currency. I say this all the time. You know, we honestly don't believe that wealth is for us, but listen, God really doesn't care about the money. People are heaven's currency. And so if you know how to impact and influence what heaven considers or what heaven deems as precious, which is people. Givers, it frees you up. And so givers improve their empathy for mankind and gain a deeper connection, because that's God's real currency, God's people. And empathy really is like a superpower. Gary Vee says this all the time. He says, giving makes you thoughtful, which in turn makes your connection stronger. A bond is created when you become the giver. Deeper connections are formed. And then number 4, giver always receives more. Remember Luke 6:38. A giver always receives more. God rewards those that give. And so I honestly believe that it's a supernatural law that works for the believer and the unbeliever, because we were all created in God's image and God is a giver. And because he is a giver, there are certain laws that will work for anybody that works them. The Bible says it rains on the just as well as the unjust. And so I don't believe that this principle only works for givers. Matter of fact, I know it doesn't. I know too many people with 7 and 8 figures that are huge givers. Matter of fact, one of the things that impacted my life the most, I remember when my son was in the 4th grade, and I was at a meeting at his school, and I remember it was a very well-known entrepreneur that was sitting right across the table from me. And this so impacted my life. I watched him write out, babe, how much was that money? Was it a $10 million check?
I don't remember exactly.
It was multiple millions. I watched him, I think it was $10 million. No, it wasn't. It was $15 million. I remember him writing out a $15 million check, a donation for the school. And that so impacted my life. I remember then going to church, and I'm not bashing the church, but I remember we happened to have a finance conference this same week. And so I left the meeting at my son's school after watching Knight Kiplinger write that check for multiple millions of dollars. If you were to look at him, you would have never known he had that kind of money. He had on a tab collar shirt that looked like it came from JCPenney's. He had on Dockers. He drove off in a Saturn car, but yet he was able to write a $15 million donation check to the school. I go to church, and the man that's talking about finances is talking about planes, trains, and automobiles and gator shoes. And I was like, who do I want to take my advice from? Let me figure out what Knight is doing, so I'm going to follow him. Because remember, I said one of the reasons why we stay broke so long is because we take financial information from broke people. We don't consider the source. We don't consider which quadrant those people are in that's giving you advice. And so a true giver has a solid reputation. Everyone loves a giver. When people know you're a giver and you genuinely care about people, they treat you with respect, with admiration, with love. And to be honest, the ultimate goal for attaining financial freedom really is to have an opportunity to give. Let's see. I remember actually a comment that I read by Winston Churchill recently, and it said something that, we make a living by what we get, but we create a life by what we give. And whenever I read quotes about giving, it always impacts me, and it makes me think that's the person that I want to become. Even at Wealthy Revolution Live, I get people asking me all the time, why do you give away gifts from Tiffany's? And I just give away really nice gifts. One, gifts are my love language. And so I like to give what I like to receive. And I just happen to like nice things, which is why I give away nice things. But if I was in debt, I couldn't be able to do that. And so I challenge you to be a giver on whatever level that you're on. There's a scripture in the Bible where this lady just bought a mite because that's all she had. But yet Jesus recognized her and says, you've given more than anybody else here, because she gave out of her need. And I'm not telling anybody, don't go pay your rent or your mortgage and give that away. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, out of what you have, your discretionary income to help impact somebody else's life. And there are plenty of organizations around here that do it. One of the things that my family, we've been donating to for years is an organization. So many kids that live in Washington, D.C. don't even have dress clothes to go on interviews or interviews for jobs or internships. And so we buy a certain number of white shirts and black pants for them to be able to look presentable when they go on an interview. You know, there's so many organizations that we give to consistently that because they have causes that I actually believe in. And so I want to challenge you to be a giver today. When I think about the impact that Robert Smith has made on the lives of those young men that was graduating, you know, and that's one of the problems that we have in this world today is, you know, right. Vicky says a pure heart looks much better than a cute new suit. That will preach, Vicky. I love that. And that's the honest God, flat foot truth right there. But I want to challenge you to be a giver today and just think about the things that you're doing that will impact somebody's life. You know, I'm thinking of a story where I lived in Baltimore. I lived in Baltimore. I went to Morgan State University to finish up my degree, and I worked in DC. And I remember the person that ministered to me that really was the reason why I got born again. It wasn't because of the preaching at me and the word, because he didn't do that at all. He saw a need, and I'll never forget this, because he had been talking to me about the Lord forever, and so had his wife, but his wife was so offensive because all she did was quote scriptures, and back then I wasn't saved at all, and neither was my mouth, and so I was probably a very difficult person to witness to. But he just changed my life. I'll never forget, one night it was snowing, and I was just so upset because I was tired of struggling. And he said, here are the keys to my car. Take my car so you can get back and forth to school and work, and I'll walk to work. And I was speechless. I mean, this man, it was snowing outside, and he gave me the keys to his BMW so I can get, and I was selling Mary Kay at the time, but he gave me the keys to his BMW so I can get back and forth to work and school. And one of the reasons why I always want to help somebody out is because somebody helped me out. I have plenty of people along the way that has helped me out. I wouldn't be where I am today. My husband, he wouldn't be where he is today if somebody did not help us out. And so you never know how you're going to impact somebody's life by you just being a giver and just give out of what you already have. And so I challenge you today to be a giver at the level that you're on. What are you the most passionate about in the world? What do you care for the most deeply? What excites you? What legacy would light you up? And then lastly, what could you do today that would make you proud? And I've had people say, well, money doesn't make you happy. Listen, money doesn't give you joy, but it can make you happy when it relieves just the pressure, you know, the financial pressure and stress that people are under. And when people say that, it's because I believe people who don't have any money make that comment that money can't make you happy. If I have to cry, I've said this before, if I have to cry and be sad, I would much rather do it at the Breakers Hotel or the St. Regis Hotel than down at the La Quinta Inn. You know, there's a different type of cry when you're surrounded by luxury. And so money, you know, people who say this, they really are just doing the wrong things with their money. And so remember, I said earlier that science has proven that being a giver and helping people really does make you happy because it releases, you know, chemicals in your body that changes your mood. And people, again, who say that really are just doing the wrong things with their money. And so money doesn't bring you joy, but I do believe that it can make you happy by the things that you do with the money. And so science has proven it. And so investing in experiences, you know, like travel and learning a new skill or taking some courses rather than acquiring more possessions can increase, you know, the things that you're doing with your money that will bring you happiness. Money has the ability to buy back your time. Buy back your time. Whenever we can afford to outsource something, our most dreaded task, you know, whenever we can afford to outsource it, like scrubbing toilets or cleaning the gutters, money can transform the way we spend our time. Like, it's no secret I hate cleaning. Like, I just don't like to clean. And so I remember years ago when I used to sell Mary Kay, I went to Dallas, Texas to a Mary Kay conference, and I heard her, this is when Mary Kay Ash was still living, I heard her say on the stage, why spend dollar time doing penny jobs? And I was like, and listen, I was really broke then, but it totally clicked on me. And so why would I be spending time cutting grass when I can pay somebody to do that and I can spend my time in making money? And so there were different things that I just decided I wasn't going to do anymore. I would just rather make more money, increase my income to be able to afford those luxuries. So money really does allow you to buy back your time. My youngest son played football for Penn State. I would not have been able to spend time with him and travel to every game if I didn't have any money. And so we were able to support him for the 4 years that he was in college and played football. We were able to go to his games. What does that do? It buys back my time. And which was very important to me, because when I was a little girl, I just didn't have parents that were able to be present because they had to work. And so again, money helps you buy back your time. And then investing in others, giving our money away, has been scientifically proven to make us happy. And so I would just, you know, charge you to just be a giver on the level that you're on to help impact somebody's life. If you can afford to pay for a book for a college student, they will be most thankful. They'll never forget that. One of the checks that I write every year is back to a church's college fund, because they helped me when I was in college. And so I want to pay it forward. And so I always make donations back to that church because they helped me when I needed it the most. And so I think it's important. Yes. Dollar time for a penny job, no more. Yep. That's how I feel. And so that's if you can afford it. Now, if you don't, work on a strategy to increase your income. And so that's all really I have to say, and you know, for today, but I just want you to think about that on a different level. What can I do to impact somebody else's life? Because really that truly is what legacy is. Talk to you later. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week. Oh, I'll have a surprise for you next week too, a surprise announcement. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.